At 45, Tolkien wrote The Hobbit and brought us Middle-earth, which changed fantasy forever. At 51, Raymond Chandler wrote The Big Sleep and invented hard-boiled detective cool. Lee Child, at 40, invented Jack Reacher and wrote The Killing Floor. Let me give you some proof that you're in great company if you're starting as a first-time author at 40 or above. As a new writer, I find this mind-blowing. These legends didn't let age stop them, and they did some of their best work in the middle or later part of their lives. Let that sink in. As a new writer, starting my journey at 40, I find these examples very exciting. These legends didn't let age stop them, they used it to their advantage. If they can start late and shine, so can you. Today we're going to dive into an idea which I've been mulling over for some time and which held me back from starting writing in the first place. Is 40 too old to start your first novel? If you're over 40, 50 or beyond and have a story in you that's begging to get out, or you're wondering if it's still possible, I'm digging into this because I'm right here with you, taking my first steps into writing, and I've uncovered some secrets which I'm going to share with you. Think you're too old? Well, think again. We're going to go deep into inspiration, some tips and tricks, and a few secrets of some of the great writers of how they've done their best work at 40 and above. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, as we bust this myth open that you've got to be young to write a novel. Let's kick things off with one of the biggest misconceptions, that you've got to be young, in your 20s, some hipster, sitting in a cool cafe, pounding out writing in some arty little journal book. And if you're like me, and you're 40 and above, you've probably got family commitments, you've got work commitments, commitments to your house or wherever you're living, and all the things that come with this later stage of life. And when I say that, I don't want you to think that 40 or above is old. You've gone through so much, you've experienced so much, and that is essentially the thing that is going to make you a fantastic writer. You have all the experience, you've seen that lens, you've seen life through that lens, and you know the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Sometimes I start to write and I wasn't quite sure if my ideas were fresh enough. I looked at people that wrote one-hit wonders. I looked at a lot of people who are pumping out a lot of content online. And I thought, maybe it is a young man's game. Maybe I've missed that window of opportunity. If you've caught yourself wondering that too when you're starting out, here's the truth. That is total garbage. Go back to Lee Child. He wrote The Killing Floor, the first Jack Reacher novel, just before he turned 40. Before that, he was in television. He wasn't dreaming up thrillers or writing anything. Then bam, he sits down and creates a global phenomenon. As a first-time author, as I started to write, I started to get a lot of feedback from people who were in their 40s and above. The most common question that came back is, I'm 45, is it too late for me to start writing? The good news is there's no hard and fast rules on what you can't do. You can write whenever, wherever, who gives a damn? It's up to you. And after digging into this pretty deeply, my answer is a very loud, no, you're right on time. Age isn't a barrier, it's an advantage. I'm just getting my feet wet into writing, and I can already see how my experiences are a huge advantage. So firstly, which I alluded to, your life experience is essentially your superpower. If you're 40, 50 or 60 or beyond, you've got a treasure chest of knowledge and stories, everyday experiences which have compounded after time and probably sat in the back of your mind just waiting to burst out. So when you put pen to paper or finger to keyboard, it's going to be like a river. Years of living, working, winning and struggling, that's not baggage, that's fuel. As a new writer, I realize how much my past experiences are shaping what I want to say to my audience. Even if now, I'm only just putting it on paper. Young writers might have speed, but we have depth, and that's what creates a great story, and that's what readers are looking for. I'll go back to the example of Lee Child. The name Jack Reacher was a name he had in his head for an immense amount of time. If you haven't seen Lee Child, he's a very tall guy, and his wife and family, anybody around him used to ask him to reach for things because he was so tall. And they ended up calling him the Reacher. That name clicked, and that's where the character came from. So by 40, he'd soaked up enough experience being in TV, in work and life to make Jack Reacher a gritty and authentic character. You have all that experience yourself, you just may not know it. Think about all the people you've ever worked with, all those characters, all those character quirks and traits. You can't tell me if you're an aspiring writer or you've dreamed of crafting stories, you haven't noticed those things. That's what I do all the time. I notice the way people say things, people's mannerisms, the way they tackle a problem, the way they shy away from accountability or responsibility.
No, God!
These are the things that create conflict, create interesting characters, and you've probably met 1,000 different people in your life or more, which you could pick little pieces from each of them to create such interesting and vivid characters for your next story. So the first thing I want you to take away is your time hasn't been wasted. You've been building up resources and characters in your mind through the people you've met and dealt with, whether good or bad, and that gives you a huge advantage on somebody else. Real life experiences mixed with your imagination creates hooks which readers love. The second thing is time is on your side. If you're 40 plus, potentially you're in your own home, you have your own space, you know who you are as a person, potentially your kids have grown up, maybe even moved out. You may have more responsibility, but at the same time, maybe less, more free time. Over 40, life often gives you a gift, which is that space to write. When you're younger, it's simply too hard to focus. There's so many things that you want to do, so many shiny objects that you want to chase, whether that's cars, relationships, jobs, money, good times, traveling, going overseas, whatever it may be. And writing gets put to the side. But now, you've got room to breathe. And even if things are still hectic, you've got young kids, you're balancing your work-life balance and all those kind of things, I think you have the maturity to be able to set things aside or create the disciplines required to write at a routine that fits your lifestyle. At 39, Lee Child lost his job in TV, and through necessity, he began writing, and he ran with it. If you're passionate about writing, you're truly excited to get started, create a daily routine. If you're serious about writing, I think the maturity of being able to create a discipline of writing and creating a routine, whether that's daily, which I do. So as I started out, I've created for myself a 90-day challenge of writing every day for 2 hours, Monday to Friday. I wouldn't have been able to do that previously and stick to it. I feel that having that maturity and being able to carve out that time is a huge bonus. And a lot of people follow their favorite author's writing routine, and that's the way they start. They Google their favorite author, there's about 20 or 30 different styles out there, and they follow that plan to dive in and then create your own routine which will work for you. Perspective is pure gold. After 40, you've seen all of life's messy edges. Nothing's cut and dry anymore. Nothing really surprises you. You've probably seen it all. You get people more, you understand their quirks, their whys, their motivations, their contradictions. That's a secret weapon. I know when I was young, I would rush in on fire and smash out a full draft. But when I go back, it's absolute garbage because I didn't have that perspective. Time and perspective lets you weave in detail that you've learned and earned the hard way. I know when I was young and I was first writing bits and pieces here and there, start writing a book, but I'd never finish it because I didn't have the focus. Now I have the discipline to write something that's intricate and layer it and weave in my own perspective. Lee Childs didn't write Reacher at 25. He waited and brought a 40-year-old's lens to it, and it's an ultimate success. That's why it's just more than just action and fight scenes. He's a very human character. As a new writer, I'm amazed at the work I produce and the context and the depth and meaning it has. Now, I know that sounds very egocentric, but if I compare that to some of the things that I wrote in my early 20s, some of them were quite good, but they just didn't have the foundation, or they were paper thin. There was a veneer. There was nothing behind them. Now, I mentioned before that I do a daily writing routine. If this doesn't fit your schedule, don't feel you have to be boxed into one way of writing. Choose a way of writing that's going to suit you. Just make sure you follow through on it. The next thing is, confidence can be built or borrowed until it's yours. Lee Child's story kills me here. At 39, no job, he tricked himself into believing his book would work out. Get the words down and it will happen. Those were his words. Even though to him, fiction felt like a huge gamble. And it paid off. Reacher is huge. As a new writer, I wrestle with this same doubt every single time. Every time I write something or look back on it, you're constantly asking yourself, is this any good? Am I wasting my time? Why am I doing this? But one thing I've learned is you don't need to feel invincible to start. You just need to get going. Fake it till you make it in your mind. Just tell yourself you've got a story that's worth telling. Confidence doesn't have to be instant. It grows as you write. And as you get further into your writing journey, you know whether you're going to stick to it or not. And as I get to a certain word count, my personality is that it's too late to turn back. Even if it's good or bad, or it's only something that I ever read myself, I have to see this through to the end. Starting to write after 40, 50 or beyond isn't just about putting pen to paper. It's about reaching out through the years to places and people you can't even imagine. Your words are a bridge across time. As a new writer, I realized something very important. Every sentence you craft carries a piece of you. Your struggles, your joys, the lessons that you've learned. It's not just a story, it's a lifetime. For the person you used to be, who needs to hear that message, even though it might be sci-fi, fantasy, or dark romance. There's a message in there for your reader, and they're waiting to hear it. I know a lot of films, books have found me when I've been very lost, and those imaginary characters have been very much like mentors and helped me to the next stage. After 40 or 50, you're not racing as much in life. You've seen behind the curtain. You don't have as much to prove to others. Maybe your story will be discovered by readers a decade from now. Finding hope in those pages, or maybe it's just for you. And the last thing is, don't wait too long. You are fighting a battle against time. It's potentially a bit morbid, but the hourglass, the grains of sand in that, there is more down the bottom than up the top. So don't put your dream off for another 20, 30 or 40 years, because you potentially don't have that time. Be disciplined, set a routine, follow the story of some of your favorite writers or creatives, whether that's film or a book. But take action today. It's simple. You don't need any programs. You don't need some specialty software. You don't need to know the right font. You just need to pull out whether a pen and paper or sit at your computer and start typing. That's the magic of being a writer. There's no real qualification. And as long as you enjoy it, that is reward enough. So I give you this challenge. If you've got a story in you that's just begging to get out, sit down now and start writing. Start telling that story. I'll be creating more content like this on my journey as a first-time author and writer, all the way through to self-publishing my first novel. If you're interested, drop self-publishing down in the comments for me so I know you want to follow. And it'd be great if you could like this video and subscribe so you can follow this journey along with me from first-time author through to being self-published.